In this physical world, there are two aspects to us. The first one is the ego, and the second is the soul. Now, the reason we want to learn what the ego is because we are operating from our ego 99% of the time. If we don't acknowledge that aspect that is running pretty much everything that we do in our lives and everything we experience, then we're going to be living our life on autopilot, attracting things to us, being the effect of life, not understanding where things are coming from in our lives, blaming outside circumstances and external sources for things that we need to heal internally. It's about self-awareness and not operating by the autopilot ego mind 24/7. Now listen, if you're happy with your life and you don't have that much meaning in it and you're happy, by all means, click off this video. This video is not for you. But more likely than not, if you are attracted to this type of video, then you are someone that desires more out of life. And if that's the case, then you're definitely going to want to stick to the end of this video so we can learn how to take back our power. In this video, we're going to be talking about what is the ego and how can we rise above the limitations that it holds upon us so we can reach our ultimate goals in life and reach our fullest potential. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel Smiles, and on this channel we talk about spirituality, the law of attraction, self-development, and making every day the best it can be. So if you're interested in that kind of content, then you're definitely going to want to subscribe below because I make new videos every Thursday and every first Sunday of the month. So today is the first Sunday of the month. This is a series that I call Spiritual Sunday on my channel. And today's video topic is all about what is the ego. Now this is episode 2, so if you missed episode 1 we talked about what is the soul. And you don't need to watch that one first because I will be going over it a little bit in this video, but definitely check that out after this video is over, just so you can have a more complete understanding of the two main aspects that are running our daily lives. So let's get right into what is the ego. Now you've probably heard of the ego before, but most definitions of the ego are kind of superficial definitions like, oh, that guy has such a big ego, he's super selfish, he only cares about himself, he's so conceited. And while those things are a part of the ego, it is a very surface level understanding of what the ego really is. What the ego is everything that makes you you in this physical world. It is who you identify as. It is your name, it's your image, it's your background, it's your religion, it's your appearance, it's the thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that you identify with. And it's the identity that you have been building upon since the moment of your birth. Ever since your birth, you've been adding on to your identity. And basically, it's the way that you view reality. That is all from your ego. Now, this level of identity, it sits in both the conscious mind, but also in the very deep subconscious level of our minds. It's like a very, very deep iceberg where only 10% of it is available to us. 90% of our self-image is submerged and we cannot physically see it. Nonetheless, this is all a part of our ego. Now, we all operate from our ego because that is our human nature. That is how it is meant to be in this physical world. We were designed to have egos. Now, in my last video, I go into so much more detail about this, but our soul is this infinite amount of energy, but yet our ego is a very limited amount of energy, right? We're limited to our 5 senses. We're limited to our perception. Our ego limits us in so many ways in this life, which we'll get a little bit more into later, but we come to this world for a specific purpose. And a part of the plan is to have limitations. We need these limitations. We need our ego because with our ego, that's the only way that we can actually have challenges. Now, I'm not saying that the ego is a good thing because actually our purpose in life is to rise above the ego as much as we possibly can, but I'm saying that it is a part of the plan, that it's all perfect and it's meant to be this way. The ego is that consciousness that separates me from you, from that table, from that tree, from your parents, from animals, and from people across the world. It's me versus that thing, me versus them. It's always me and something else that is not a part of me. But the truth is, and science has backed this up, that the essence of who we are has never been created and it will never be destroyed. That is the first law of thermodynamics. Science states that energy can never be created nor destroyed. The essence of who we are can never be created nor destroyed. So that is what our soul is. Whereas our ego, it is physical. So the physicality of us does die. But in reality, it is all an illusion. So back to what I was saying, that there is a connectedness of our soul, the essence of who we are, to the rest of the world. There's no separation. Our soul is not separated from anything. Only our ego is. So that's a really hard concept to understand because we are operating by our ego. Everything comes from the same source. Everything in this world at one point came from the same source, meaning everything is one. Everything in this world is energy. Energy cannot be created. Energy cannot be destroyed. And it all comes from the same source. Meaning, even if something in this world appears to us as if it is dead or if it is gone, the actual atoms and the molecules of that thing are not destroyed. They've just taken on a different form. Energy cannot be destroyed. The essence of that thing that was destroyed has always been, and it will always be existent. Thoughts and feelings are energy as well. So that's why what we think and what we feel has an influence on everything else on the planet. Because it is all connected, it is all from the same source of energy. This is how the law of attraction works, how manifestation works. Because our mind rules over matter. When we're manifesting something, we're not creating something out of thin air. We are only attracting the energy that already exists in the world towards us. We know from science that appearances are deceiving. What we view as solid is actually not solid at all. Science has proved that solid matter is 99.99999999999% empty space. That means that 0.00000000001% of the solid object's mass is solid. Science also tells us that we are all part of the same matter. So my point in bringing all of this up is to say, yes, I'm talking here about spiritual, metaphysical things, but a majority of ancient spiritual teachings are only now being discoverable by science. Only now are being credited and being proven physically in this physical world to be true. So this is kind of a side note, but just something to think about is that science and spirituality are not against each other. It's just different terminology that we use and different ways of viewing the same type of information, if that makes sense. The problem with the ego is that it is very limited to the five senses. It is limited to your perception, to the way that you currently view yourself and the world. There are so many truths out there in the world, but our ego does not allow us to expand our minds to see that maybe what I think I know is not the whole truth, that there is a truth out there, and I would be super ignorant to think that I know everything because this universe is so vastly intelligent that I have to just let go of my ego and understand that I do not know everything. If it goes against what the ego believes, the ego will shut it down. Everything that happens to us in our lives is another piece that is added to our ego, making our ego bigger. Our ego needs to cling onto something. It needs to identify itself in a box. It needs it. It needs to know that I'm a part of this group, that I'm a part of this social class, that I'm a part of this religion. It needs to know that these are my beliefs, these are my possessions, this is what I have in my life, and that's what makes me valuable. The ego places all of its value on the external things that it possesses, or that it thinks it is. I'm gonna write on the board here some of the differences between the ego and the soul. So I'm not gonna go into detail on everything, but I am just gonna read it all out for you guys, just for a very basic understanding of what it means to be connecting with the ego versus connecting with the soul. So when you're connected to the ego, it's all about me, me, me. It's my physical identity, limited by the five senses, instant gratification, blames the outside world, has insecurities, feels lack, anger, fear, doubt, worry, impatience, uncertainty. It has the need to be right at all times. It is constantly seeking validation from the outside world, living in the past or future, and it's illusionary and it is mortal, meaning it has an end, it dies. So then when we connect with our soul, we are connecting with our essence, which is formless and it is unlimited. Already, right off the bat, it is very hard for our egos to understand what unlimited means, what formless means, because we are confined to our five senses, to this physical body. We cannot see energy, we cannot see infinite, so it's very hard already to just comprehend that on its own. Then we have sharing kindness, love, connected to source. You could also say God, you could also say the universe. I just say source because it is the source of everything. All energy comes from the same source. So whatever you want to call that source, that is the place where our soul is connected to. It has certainty that everything in life is going to unfold in the way that it needs to unfold for our soul's growth. It is immortal, meaning it never dies. Despite our physical bodies deteriorating, dying, and leaving this physical world, our soul never leaves. It never dies. Our soul trusts and surrenders, which is similar to having certainty, surrendering to the process, trusting the process. The soul takes responsibility for its current life circumstances. It's not always blaming this person did something to me, so it's their fault that I'm feeling this way. Taking responsibility for the way that you're feeling, for the way that your life is, and for the way that you want your life to be. You cannot blame others because you are not living the life that you want to live. Living in the present moment, because I didn't write this down, but time is an illusion. And I do want to make a video on that fully one day, but time does not exist. So really only the present moment exists. So when you're connecting with your soul, that means you are connecting with the present moment. You're not thinking about what happened yesterday. What are you going to do tomorrow? What are your plans for life? What is all of these things, stressing, that anxiety, that does not exist when you are connected with your soul. It is light, it is joy, it is pure unconditional love and forgiveness. Then I wrote, there's more in my last video on the soul, so if you guys want to see a little bit more information on the soul, then you guys can watch my last video on Spiritual Sunday. So the point of me outlining what is the ego, what is the soul, you shouldn't be like this, you should be like this, it's not really to say you cannot act with the ego, because all of this, that is our natural tendencies in this world. We probably have all of these, if not a majority of them, and a million times more, because our ego is what controls us. It's how we operate in this physical world. So I'm not saying that you cannot have these characteristics. You should only connect with the characteristics of your soul, because that's just not how it works. But actually, if you were to get rid of the ego, there would be no space for you in this physical world, because to be in this physical world, you need to have the ego. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit off track. But because our ego shows up differently for each of us, it is our responsibility in life to find where does our ego show up the most within ourselves. But our purpose in life isn't to change everyone else. Our purpose in life is to first change ourselves, to overcome that ego that we have within ourselves. The purpose and the goal of learning this isn't to say, don't have an ego. It's to acknowledge that all of these things are not really a part of your essence. It's not a part of who you are. It is just a part of this physical worldly experience. So acknowledging it, I always say acknowledging it is the most important part about changing and about self-growth, is acknowledging that it's there. Acknowledging that you have an ego that comes up in all these different ways. And once you acknowledge it, you can then work on identifying when it shows up so that you can work on overcoming it. I'm not going to say overcome it, just overcome it, because it's not that simple. Our egos are extremely powerful. They're extremely strong. It takes a strong desire to even want to overcome your ego. If you want to connect with blessings, if you want to connect with the universe and manifest, then you want to connect with your soul. We don't want to connect with our ego at all times because it brings us down. We feel shitty. Day by day, we need to work on removing it. But the thing is, the reason that people don't want to work on removing the ego is because when the ego breaks, it feels pain. When there are challenges, something that tests our ego, it tests our identity, it tests who we think we are, what we think we deserve, it tests what we think we can handle based on our limiting beliefs and our ego. What happens when we get that challenge is our ego begins to break, and it hurts. It hurts our ego a lot. That's why we feel pain. We feel pain in this world when our ego is breaking. So even if it sounds like it's a bad thing, it's actually a good thing, because only when the ego breaks down can we shift to a higher level of consciousness. Can we shift to a place where we can access more information, more qualities from our soul. We can embody the essence of our soul more in this physical world. We can feel happier. We connect with the divine. But we cannot connect with the divine when we have so many layers of ego blocking our vision, blocking our path. So let's get this out of the way. Move you guys over here. Okay. So to end off this video, I want to give you guys 3 ways that we can work on breaking down that ego. Number 1 is to start with identifying when those ego thoughts start to come in. When you notice yourself identifying with things that you don't want to be identified with. For example, when you start to think, oh my gosh, I'm so awkward. Oh my gosh, I'm so annoying. This person hates me. Why do I always attract those type of people? Like, people just don't like me. And for this one, you guys should definitely check out my video. I think it's called Are Our Thoughts Really Ours? I'll link that above. But being able to identify when those thoughts come into our mind that do not belong to us. So often we identify with the thoughts of our ego. We don't want to identify with the thoughts of our ego. We want to identify with the thoughts of our soul, the thoughts from divine, from source. When we identify with our ego thoughts, it becomes us. It reinforces that ego identity. If you think, I'm so awkward, and you really start to think that and you start to believe that, then you are feeding it energy. And it becomes us because belief turns into thought, and thought turns into feelings. Feelings are what manifest in this world. We manifest from our heart. We manifest by the things that we feel. It starts with the belief that I'm awkward. And then you start to think, I'm awkward. And then you start to feel it. You give it energy. You start to feel, okay, this is who I am. And then that becomes who you are, because what you feel manifests. What you feel becomes your reality. So for this part, you just need to recognize those thoughts when they're coming in so that we can work on shifting them to something else. Number 2 is to start to access information from your soul. Your soul is an endless stream of love, of sharing, of forgiveness of yourself and of others. This step is all about taking the necessary steps to really show yourself self-love, self-acceptance, and work on healing those different aspects of you, those different parts of you that are attached to the ego. Now, there are many ways that you could do this. I'm going to just add some of them on the screen right now. But the more energy you give into trying to heal yourself, trying to improve your life, the more you're going to get out of it. So with this step, it really just depends. How badly do you want to be happy? How badly do you want to connect with yourself, with your soul, with love? If you don't want to connect to it, then you're not going to put in the necessary effort that it takes to have that self-love. But if you put in that effort daily, every day, one little baby step at a time, you'll be able to also identify so much easier what is a part of your soul and what is a part of the ego. So being able to access information from the soul lets you know what's possible, what's out there. And number 3, I think this is like the most important one. And that is to understand that you are not broken. You do not need to be fixed because your life is ruled by your ego. You're not broken for the way that the ego shows up in your life. Our egos are just much louder than our souls. We need to really work on tuning up the volume of our soul to be able to access our soul so much more like that. The easier thing to do is to be sad. The easier thing to do is to listen to the ego, because that is the basis of which this world runs upon. We operate from our egos. It is easier to. What you truly need to focus on is self-love, what makes you happy, connecting with the divine, which whatever that means to you. Know that everything in your life is for a reason. Our souls come to this world in a physical limited body for a reason. It needs to be tested in certain ways. The people that are in your life are perfectly orchestrated there to test you in the ways that you need to be tested for your soul's growth. The more you break down the ego, the more you can access your soul, which means we access more blessings, we access more happiness, we can attract more, use the law of attraction so much better because we're at a higher vibration. And life just becomes a million times better. The ego wants you to feel doubt. The ego wants you to be mad. The ego wants you to feel like you've messed up. Your ego wants you to feel that the ego is who you are. It wants you to identify with it, and it will do everything it can. It's like a force. It's this force within us that will always try to pull us down. We have to use our soul. We have to use our intuition to consciously go against our nature and pull ourselves out of that place. And it's not easy, but you shouldn't beat yourself up because it's not easy. You have to remember that everything you do is up to you. At the end of the day, you make every decision in your life. That is a lot of power. We are so much more powerful than we think. You are powerful, and the first way that you can take back that power is not allowing the ego to control you as much as it did before. It's still gonna control you. It's still gonna run your life in many ways, but you're removing layers every time you acknowledge it, and you are taking back your power. Every time you show yourself self-love, every time you say something positive to yourself, you are going against that force. Don't be hard on yourself either, because that's the ego. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, then I would really appreciate it if you would leave it a like down below, and also subscribe if you are not already. I would love to have you join me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!